This is the Nobel Prize weed growing in American gardens, a plant called Sweet Annie that helped inspire one of the most important malaria drugs ever discovered. You could spend $100 on supplements at Costco or Whole Foods. While this plant can grow from seed in a backyard, raised bed, or even a patio container, in China, it was Qinghao. In the lab, it became artemisinin. In America, it often hangs as a sweet-smelling wreath. But behind that fragrance is a story of ancient medicine, war, WHO warnings, and one question: when a plant becomes medicine, who gets to control it? Section 1. The plant Americans don't recognize. Sweet Annie sounds harmless, doesn't it? It sounds like something you'd find at a fall craft fair, tied with twine, tucked into a dried flower bundle, or hanging on a farmhouse door next to pumpkins and corn stalks. And honestly, that's exactly where many Americans know it from. It has this sweet, green, almost resin-like fragrance. Gardeners grow it for wreaths. Crafters dry it for arrangements. In a backyard herb bed, it looks like just another tall, feathery plant that got a little too comfortable. But here's the thing. Sweet Annie is not just a pretty aromatic herb. Its scientific name is Artemisia annua, the same plant connected to artemisinin, the compound that helped transform modern malaria treatment and led Tu Youyou to a Nobel Prize. Before this plant was a pharmaceutical story, it was something you could smell, cut, dry, and hang in a kitchen. And that contrast is almost unbelievable. One branch on a farmhouse door, another branch in the history of Nobel medicine. But that sweet smell is not where the story begins. The real story starts in a medical text from the year 340 AD. Section 2. The Ancient Clue. From 340 AD, to understand Sweet Annie, you have to leave the American garden for a moment and go back to China. Around the year 340 AD, a scholar named Gi Hong was compiling an emergency medical handbook. Not a wellness blog, not a supplement label, a survival manual. And inside it, he wrote about Qinghao for intermittent fevers, the kind of fever that comes, disappears, and then returns like something is hiding in the blood. But here's the surprising part. The clue was not just the plant. It was the preparation. Gi Hong did not say, boil it into a tea. He described soaking the plant in water, squeezing out the juice, and drinking it. That tiny detail sat there for more than 1,600 years. And honestly, gardeners understand this better than most people. How you harvest, dry, heat, or store an herb can change everything. A delicate leaf can lose its scent. A flower can lose its oils. A plant can look the same, but chemically, it is no longer the same plant. Modern science did not invent that clue from nothing. It had to rediscover it. And more than 1,600 years later, a war forced scientists to open that old clue again. Section 3. The war that made the weed important. Then came the Vietnam War, and malaria was not some abstract tropical disease in a textbook. It was taking soldiers out of the fight, quietly, relentlessly, sometimes more efficiently than bullets. The terrifying part was this: the old drugs were starting to fail. Parasites were becoming resistant. Standard treatments were losing their edge. And when modern medicine hit a wall, researchers in China launched a secret military effort called Project 523. Their mission was simple, but almost impossible. Find something that still worked. They screened modern compounds. They searched ancient formulas. Thousands of old remedies were pulled back into the light, not because anyone was chasing a wellness trend, but because people were dying. And this is where Sweet Annie stopped being just a plant. It became a suspect. Tu Youyou and her team kept seeing Qinghao appear in the old records, so they tested it. But the results were strange. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it failed, and that almost killed the discovery. Section 4. The detail everyone missed. Don't boil it. So Tu Youyou went back to the old text. And honestly, this is the part that feels almost too simple. The plant had not disappeared. The clue had not disappeared, but the method had been misunderstood. Modern researchers were doing what most people would do with an herb. They were heating it, boiling it, extracting it the obvious way. But Gi Hong's instruction from 340 AD did not say to boil Qinghao. It said to soak it, and that changed everything. Tu Youyou, realized heat might be destroying the very compound they were trying to find. So her team shifted to a lower temperature extraction method. And suddenly the results became powerful, consistent, impossible to ignore. Sometimes the expensive breakthrough is not hidden inside a brand new synthetic molecule. Sometimes it is hidden inside the preparation method, and for gardeners, that matters. A medicinal plant is not just about growing it. Genetics matter, harvest timing matters, drying matters, storage matters, heat matters. Once they found the compound, the story stopped being folklore. It became chemistry. Section 5. The chemistry. A microscopic trap. And the chemistry is what makes this plant so strange. Artemisinin does not behave like a soft, gentle herbal tonic. It works more like a trap. Malaria parasites survive by feeding inside red blood cells. And because of that, they are surrounded by iron. Artemisinin has a rare chemical structure that reacts with that iron. And when it does, it creates a burst of destructive free radicals inside the parasite. In plain English, the parasite eats its way into the bloodstream, and the compound turns that weakness against it. That is why this is not fringe medicine. Artemisinin-based drugs are part of official malaria treatment today. The molecule crossed the line from ancient clue to modern pharmacology. But here's the thing. A cup of backyard tea is not the same as a malaria prescription. It is not standardized. It is not measured. It is not controlled. But it does mean the pharmacy shelf and the garden bed are more connected than most Americans think. And this is where the story becomes uncomfortable. If the molecule works, why is the whole plant so controversial? Section 6. Who warning. The plant is powerful, variable, and hard to control. And this is where the story gets uncomfortable. The World Health Organization does not support using raw Artemisia plant material to prevent or treat malaria. And to be fair, their concern is not imaginary. A plant is variable. One harvest may contain more artemisinin. Another may contain less. Soil, climate, genetics, drying, storage, all of it changes the chemistry. Too little active compound might not kill the parasite completely, and that can mean relapse, treatment failure, or even drug resistance. But here's the part most people miss. The warning also proves the plant matters. Nobody warns this hard about a plant that does nothing. A standardized pill can be patented, priced, shipped, prescribed, and controlled. A seed packet is different. A plant in a backyard does not fit neatly into a supply chain. So no, this is not permission to self-treat malaria with tea. Grow it as a medicinal history plant. Study it. Respect it. Because that tension is exactly why the story is worth telling. But the most American chapter of this story does not happen in China or Geneva. It happens in Kentucky. Section 7. Kentucky. From tobacco country to Sweet Annie fields. And this is where Sweet Annie becomes an American story. Not in a wellness aisle. Not on a supplement label. In Kentucky. At the University of Kentucky, researchers have grown Artemisia annua at Spindletop Farm, using real agricultural systems. Seedlings, field rows, tractors, harvest timing, drying, extraction, lab testing. In other words, this is no longer just an ancient herb from a Chinese medical text. It is crop research, and that matters because Kentucky knows what it means for a plant to shape an economy. For generations, tobacco was not just a crop there. It was land, labor, identity, and income. So for a farmer, Sweet Annie is not just a $5 seed packet story. It is a question of whether land once tied to tobacco could produce a plant tied to medicine instead. That is a very different kind of garden story. Picture it. Rows of Sweet Annie in a Kentucky field at sunrise, then cut to the same plant in a backyard raised bed. One plant, two scales. And once researchers started looking beyond malaria, the questions became even bigger. Section 8. The cancer question. Powerful, but not a cure claim. And this is where a lot of videos become irresponsible. They hear the word cancer, and suddenly every herb becomes a miracle. That is not what this is. Sweet Annie is not a cancer cure, and nobody should treat it like one. But here's what makes the question hard to ignore. Compounds from Artemisia annua have been studied in tumor cell lines. Researchers have looked at their cytotoxic effects, their interaction with abnormal cells, and their potential mechanisms. That does not mean proven treatment. It means the plant keeps showing up in places serious scientists cannot completely dismiss. And honestly, that is more interesting than hype. Americans spend billions chasing anti-aging powders, longevity capsules, and wellness products with glossy labels. But this story is different. It did not begin in marketing. It began as a fever herb, then a malaria breakthrough, then a research question. So grow it for education, history, and respect, not as a substitute for cancer care. But before modern labs asked about cancer, old households knew this plant family for something much more primitive: worms, insects, and the smell that animals avoid. Section 9. The wormwood family. Parasites, insects, and old household fear. The name wormwood is not exactly charming. It sounds old, bitter, almost medieval. But names like that usually come from somewhere. For centuries, plants in the Artemisia family sat close to some of the oldest fears humans had. Ever. Parasites, insects, infections, things you could not always see, but could feel taking over the body. And this is where the folk memory gets interesting. People dried these plants, hung them in kitchens, tucked them into bundles, used their strong scent around rooms, closets, animals, and bedding, long before every problem had a spray bottle, a pill bottle, or a branded solution. Now, that does not mean every old use was safe or effective. But modern research into Artemisia oils and insect-related activity suggests the old instinct was not completely random either. So hang it, dry it, smell it, study it. Just don't pretend every ancient use is automatically a treatment plan. And then one cousin of this plant almost destroyed the reputation of the entire family. Section 10. Absinthe. How a plant gets a bad reputation. And this is where the wormwood story takes a darker turn. One cousin of Sweet Annie, Artemisia absinthium, became famous through absinthe, the so-called green fairy. Artists drank it, writers romanticized it, newspapers feared it. And by the early 1900s, absinthe had become more than a drink. It became a public enemy. People blamed wormwood for madness, violence, hallucinations, moral collapse. But here's the thing. The story was never just about the plant. It was alcohol. It was media panic. It was politics. It was competing industries watching a cheap, popular drink threaten their market. When a plant enters a market, the fight is never just about safety. It is also about who loses money if the story changes. And that is why gardeners need plant literacy. Artemisia annua, Artemisia absinthium, and ornamental wormwoods are not interchangeable. Same family, different chemistry, different story. So now the question becomes, if you can grow Sweet Annie in America, should you? Section 11. Can you grow Sweet Annie in the US? So can you actually grow Sweet Annie in America? Yes. And honestly, the warning is not that it is too hard to grow. The warning is that it may be too easy. Sweet Annie is an annual herb that loves full sun, grows fast, and can reach 5 or 6 feet in a single season. You can start it after the last frost, tuck it into a backyard bed, a raised bed, an herb border, or even a large patio container. But here's the catch. It can reseed aggressively. So if you do not want a small Sweet Annie forest next year, cut it before it drops seed. And this is where the money angle gets real. You could spend $100 on supplements at Costco, Amazon, or Whole Foods and finish the bottle in a month. Or you could spend that same $100 at Home Depot, Lowe's, or a local nursery and start a small medicinal history garden that keeps growing, reseeding, and teaching you not to self-treat malaria. To understand the plant behind the medicine, comment below. Would you plant it or keep it out of your garden? And subscribe for more stories about the plants that changed medicine. Because the next one may already be growing closer than you think.